Well, Bibi delivered the boom before Congress yesterday. That was quite a harangue he offered. And I got to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just rare these days when you have somebody as well educated and well spoken speak with the kind of moral clarity that he did, especially knowing that a significant percentage of that audience, I don't know, like Rashida Tlaib holding up a sign that said war criminal, was against you. And you could obviously tell as this sort of took on a State of the Union speech type of feel when people are applauding and some people are standing up and other people are not standing up and some people are applauding while they're sitting down and other people are not applauding while they're sitting down, depending on what the exact line was. But I thought Bibi framed it right. And remember, against the backdrop of what you're going to hear from him, if you didn't catch all of his remarks, the protesters outside who took down American flags, burned them, and raised Palestinian flags.
And hung Netanyahu in effigy, yes.
Who defaced statues and other artwork, who flooded the Watergate Hotel where the Israeli delegation was staying with maggots and crickets.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't think a lot of people know about that because mainstream media, that was too extreme for them to cover that.
Yeah, I want
too extreme.
I want to warn you. You may find this next fact a little too disturbing to contemplate, but this is who the new Bolsheviks are.
And they beat up Capitol Police. Did you see that? They dragged one officer through the square. I mean, it was total mayhem.
It's probably a good preview of what you'll see at the DNC in a month. But Bibi's framing of this, I'm talking about Israel versus Hamas and other Iranian-backed terrorist organizations.
We meet today at a crossroads of history. Our world is in upheaval. In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization. It's a clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life. For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together. Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose.
And it purposely did not cut the applause there because I think it's important that people hear the extended applause and the nature of it to a lot of what Bibi had to say, because it is Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and these other hate-mongering Bolsheviks represent a small fraction of even the Democrat Party. Now, there's too many cowards on that side such that they're unwilling to stand up to them. But I mean, the support for what Bibi was saying, because it's so obviously true, was overwhelming. And it's overwhelming publicly too, but you wouldn't know that because you have a DC press corps that caters to the most extremist elements of the Democrat Socialist Party. Bibi then turned his attention a few minutes later in his remarks to those protesters we were talking about. Again, moral clarity and a great moment where he gave a little hat tip to a certain
I love this
congregation of frat boys.
Yet incredibly, many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They stand with rapists and murderers. They stand with people who came into the kibbutzim, into a home, The parents hid the children, the two babies, in the attic, in a secret attic. They murdered the families, the parents. They found the secret latch to the hidden attic, and then they murder the babies. These protesters, stand with them. They should be ashamed of themselves. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters.
And then you actually had a chance of USA break out in the halls of Congress. You don't get that very often. I assume Rashida Tlaib did not participate. With more on the protesters and, frankly, Ivy League presidents who he addressed as well.
Well, I have a message for these protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hang gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots. Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
I don't know. It doesn't have the greatest comedic timing I've ever heard, but not bad.
But you know what? He's fearless, and he knew what he wanted to say, and he said it. God bless him.
And this to me was the sort of the signature line. So a little bit of a history lesson for the protesters, the pro-Hamas sympathizers, the model Hamas on college campuses, and apparently university presidents' offices. A little history lesson with a distinct message about how this is going to go.
They call Israel a colonialist state. Don't they know that the land of Israel is where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prayed, where Isaiah and Jeremiah preached, and where David and Solomon ruled?
No, they don't know.
For nearly 4,000 years, the land of Israel has been the homeland of the Jewish people. It's always been our home. It will always be our home.
For more on this, or pleased to be in other political matters, please be joined by Noah Rothman, senior writer at National Review, author of The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against Progressives' War on Fun. Noah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, that was a rather aggressive speech from Bibi. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I tend to err on the more aggressive side, perhaps. So what about yourself?
I mean, I loved it, but it was a barn burner.
Yeah.
And there's a school of thought among Zionists, American Jews, and Israel supporters generally that prescribes caution when you engage in partisan politics in the United States, because Democrats win elections too. You know, not too long ago, within our lifetimes, the Republican Party was the more skeptical party towards Israel. Democratic Party, being the home of American Jewry, was far more accepting of the state and supportive of the state, in part because the Jewish state at the time had a far more left-leaning political orientation. No longer. But nevertheless, political coalitions change, and Democrats win elections too, and so it's just incumbent on you to just be cautious, prudent when engaging in something that could be seen as partisan, speech. And I am willing to accept that to an extent, because it should end at the point at which you feel like you are compelled to lie in order to justify and perpetuate this neutrality. And Netanyahu refused to lie. As you said, everything he said on that stage was searingly honest. The protesters are, according to U.S. intelligence offered by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, being materially funded by Iran. They have lined up with, as Bibi said, the tyrants of Tehran and have become their useful idiots. Correct. Undeniably correct. Iran has been accused of supporting these elements. The protesters are anti-American. They're literally burning American flags in the streets as Benjamin Netanyahu is addressing Congress. It is correct and appropriate to point this out. When he says Israel fights Hamas, and when Israel fights Hamas, we are fighting Iran, and when we are fighting Iran, we are not just protecting ourselves, we are protecting you. undeniably correct. We are engaged in the same fight. Iran has attacked, via its proxies, American service personnel and killed them. It has sent murder squads to the United States. It has held American servicemen and women hostage and compelled them to divulge sensitive information to them in captivity. Iran is an enemy of the United States. We are aligned in that goal. Absolutely correct. When he says things like the war would end tomorrow if Hamas surrenders, he's right. When he says the IDF has cleared out Rafah of Hamas terrorists without all the civilian casualties that the administration was so desperately worried about, he is right. When he says the IDF has gone above and beyond to the degree to which scholars of urban warfare, from Sir Andrew Roberts to the individual he mentioned yesterday, the War College, he's correct that the IDF goes above and beyond, even exceeding accepted standards of protecting civilian life in a war zone. He's correct when he says that if you give us the tools faster, meaning weapons, offensive weaponry, we will finish the job faster, which is to everybody's goal as far as I was told. He is correct. It's important to acknowledge these truths because if the Democratic Party's relationship with Israel is predicated on a lie, then it is an unsustainable relationship. Very important for us to face the truth of the fight that we're facing. And as you noted, despite the fact that about half the Democratic caucus in the House and the Senate boycotted this speech, those Democrats who didn't were receptive to this message and did participate in some of those many prolonged standing ovations. This is a consensus in this country. It is not a consensus in the press. And that's where the discrepancy comes from. The United States is a pro-Israel country. Media isn't. That is the big divide here in our politics.
Well, and it's interesting because speaking of that sort of soft boycott that went on, John Podhoretz tweeting, Democrats doing a soft boycott of Netanyahu's speech. Interesting to see what effects this might have, given the polling data that suggested they might have a problem at the national level with the Jewish vote, which matters very much in the bellwether state of Pennsylvania. So, I mean, Bernie Sanders, that Bibi should be arrested, and I mentioned Rashida Tlaib holding up her war criminal sign, and the other histrionics from both members of Congress and their, supporters, allies of convenience outside, creating all of that havoc that we detailed and acting in such boorish and uncivilized and in often cases illegal ways. Does Podhoretz have a point here that it's not going to be a sea change, but you may be able to peel off enough Jewish votes on this particular issue and the behavior of the radical left that it could make a difference in a swing state like Pennsylvania?
It could, and far be it for me to argue with my former boss, John Podhoretz, who's usually right. It's hard for us to say from our vantage point, A, because Jews are a very small population in the United States, and it's kind of difficult to poll them. So when you get a subsample in a poll that's American Jews, it's a very small group with a high margin of error, and it's kind of hard to see where they go. And since 10/7, I personally have experienced anecdotes of left-leaning American Jews being mugged by reality. Mm-hmm. And kind of experiencing that and saying, wow, we have to reevaluate all our political priors. And then I see polling which suggests American Jews are still voting for Democrats to the tune of like 70-20, something like that. So it's hard for me to say definitively one way or the other. I don't have statistical evidence to back up any of the anecdotes that I personally experienced. That being said, I would find it hard to believe that American Jews haven't looked at the state of American political discourse and the violence and chaos in the streets and not seen something of an existential threat here. At least that's been my experience. And Democrats have a real problem on their hands. I don't think they acknowledge it because one of the primary reasons why Joe Biden was elected, in my view, it was elected in 2020, is because Americans rejected the chaos that was in the streets in the Trump era. And we have since seen more chaos in the streets in the Biden era, which undermines this fundamental element of the Democratic Party's value proposition. And Kamala Harris has the opportunity here to remake herself. She really can. She's pretty well defined in a lot of Americans' eyes, but not on the margins. And the margins are all that's going to matter here. And if she decides, as Democrats have decided in the Biden era, that they can ignore this, or they can sort of court and cajole these menacing, freakish mobsters in the streets doing violence to the symbols of American authority and American patriotism, they're going to lose. There's no way around it. The American public is not going to reward this kind of conduct, and the fight is on them. They can't. The only way through it for Democrats is through it. They can't just simply pretend as though this isn't happening and hope it's going to go away. As you said, there's going to be violence in the streets in Chicago. We can see it coming. We've been seeing it coming from space. It's been a year now, and it's been obvious that this is what's going to happen. If the Democratic Party proceeds as though it is a tacit ally of this movement by refusing to confront it, even implicitly, it will redound to the Republican Party's benefit. An implicit repudiation of this movement, and it doesn't necessarily have to be direct, but an implicit repudiation, which I think would be presented. The opportunity here is most evident in the chance for Kamala Harris to pick somebody like Josh Shapiro, an observant Jew, kosher Jew, who is a pro-Israel Democrat, who is beloved in the must-win state of Pennsylvania, would do everything that Kamala Harris has to do to remake her image. She's got a big liberal problem, right? She can't run away from her record. She can't say, well, I no longer support gun confiscation and the elimination of the private health insurance industry and open borders. She can't do that. She can't repudiate her own career. She can do the Fetterman. John Fetterman is still as progressive as he always was. He never abandoned any of his preferences for the sweep progressive policy issues that he ran on in 2022. All he did was to fully embrace Israel and stand up to the mob.
Right.
And that has repaired his image with Pennsylvania voters. He was the least popular senator in America in the summer of 2023. He's now way above water in Pennsylvania, almost with the support of a majority of Pennsylvanians, including a third of Trump voters in that state. He didn't do anything. All he did was, I support Israel, and didn't back off. Wow. That's available to Kamala Harris if she has the courage to take that route.
What a sad commentary that is in our electorate. Not because of his support for Israel, but because of, the obvious, painful maneuver that goes on, that has gone on with Fetterman.
Just stand up to him.
I know. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We'll see. That does take a little bit more chutzpah, if I could, than Kamala has shown to date. But we'll see. Noah Rothman, senior writer at National Review, author of The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against Progressives' War on Fun. Thanks, Noah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.